Yes, I think so. Good morning. Let's get settled. You can close our eyes if you wish. And let's go inside to talk with the Spirit of God within each one of us. Recognizing that there is but one power, one present, one source of all life, and that power and presence is God. And that presence is operating in and around and through each one of us. And as we let go and let the power and the presence of God guide, direct, and support us, we find that we are moving through life with ease and with joy. The divine Spirit of God is always present, always waiting our acceptance. The acceptance of the Spirit of God moves us into a different thinking mode, a different feeling mode. We let the power and the presence of God guide our thoughts and actions and our reactions. For once we are one with God, we know and accept this power, and we use it in our lives for good and in the lives of others for good. For we know that power and presence of God is good. And it is the essentialness of our being that we use it in positive ways. We let the divine Spirit of God move us with ease. Any challenge that we may face, we look squarely at the challenge and know that God is guiding and directing us through this challenge. Any doubts and any fears that might appear immediately is evaporated by the power and the presence of God within us. The confidence, the knowingness, the acceptance of this power and presence makes us one with God. Being one with God, we cannot lose. We will and always find a way by the power and the presence of God guiding and directing and supporting us. The divine Spirit only requests that we accept this power. We recognize the power, and we let the power guide us. And as we rely on this power, miracles, they say, happen. But the power and the presence of God is always there. The miracle is in the acceptance of God. For we are one with God. And as we move through this month and throughout this year, we recognize our oneness with this power. And we let it guide and move us easily and effortlessly. And we are grateful for this internal knowingness that God is the source and substance of our lives. And for once, we know and accept the goodness of life, the beauty of life, the knowingness of the Spirit of God. And with praise and gratitude for the divine love of God, I release this treatment into the law of mind and action, where it's accepted and acted upon at once. And so it is.
Good morning. Good morning. So today's reading is from This Thing Called Life by Ernest Holmes. Confidence in love alone casts out fear. The man without fear is the only true whole man. It is ours to decide whether we shall live in fear or in faith. Let us decide to live in faith. Let the keynote of our thought be, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Faith alone can bind us back to the invisible. Let us learn to practice faith until all faith disappears, until life ceases to be funeral dirge and becomes a song of joy. We feel cut off from the source of our being when we fail daily to reunite ourselves with the source of all being. This is the meaning of true religion. disregarding its outward form, for the body of truth is one, no matter what vestments it may wear. To find peace in the midst of confusion, one must realize this center in pure spirit. To reach this place of confidence and faith in the midst of doubt and uncertainty, one must establish himself in the conviction that the divine keeps watch over me. The center of every man's life is poised in pure spirit. We should daily seek this inner communion, for it is also the place of spiritual protection and divine guidance. We are immersed in this creative and living intelligence, the intelligence that creates and sustains the vast cosmic order, holding the planets in their appointed orbits, governing the wind and the wave. This intelligence is ours to use. We may use the power of the divine mind by consciously thinking it into manifestation. We should realize that the undoing judgment of divine intelligence directs our lives, making perfect and plain the way before us. And so it is.
Thank you. Okay, and now we'll have our announcements. So this coming Wednesday, if you were part of the meditation group last week, that meditation group will continue. There are flyers on the back table. Meditation, because some questions cannot be answered by Google, #inner knowing. I love that. And that's done by Barbara Blake, and that will be the meeting this week at the Unitarian Center. So if you need some kind of peace during the midweek, please go to this wonderful meeting which will teach you all about meditation. Meditation is really an incredible thing. It really is. I also want to welcome back Yoichi. He's back from Japan. And we're going to have a little meeting at 12:30 this afternoon for those of you who are interested in the class that I'm doing. It's called The 5 Gifts of Abundance by Diane Harmony. And those gifts are gratitude, intention, tithing, surrender, and forgiveness. I didn't do that exactly in the order, but it's a wonderful book. Edwin Gaines has talked about it. It's going to be a great class. It will be 8 weeks, and it is for credit. So if you're interested, it will start today at 12:30, a little mini meeting that we're going to have first, and I look forward to that. So in the midst of confusion, I love from that reading that Barbara gave us, there is always peace when we know the truth, and we hold on to that oneness within us. Let me think if there is anything else. So we have our class, we have our Wednesday night meeting, and I think that's it right now for the announcements, okay? So also I wanted to just say that now we're going to have a very special thing this morning, and that is our speaker, Schonda Fields. She's going to give a talk called Divine Guidance is Everything. Schonda is a licensed practitioner and a wonderful speaker and teacher, and I am sure that you will enjoy the lesson today. Oh yeah, the music. I did this 2 weeks ago too. Yeah, I welcomed you back and then I forgot all about you. Okay, please help me welcome Yoichi. We have to have a sense of quite a warning. Welcome, Yoichi.
Thank you. Thank you, Loretta. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so nice to be back here again. And also, it's so nice to be back in New York City, in the United States, New York City. It's always, where everything happens, especially jazz. So I'm looking forward to, all the work, all the performances coming up, and I'll probably share with you at some point. I'm sure I'm playing in Manhattan at some point, in a couple times in early April. So I'll keep it posted. So yeah, while I was in Japan, I visited all over Japan, probably more than 20 prefectures out of 47, at least. And I had to fly twice. I had to catch a bullet train many times, and that was really nice. And I tried. My goal was to provide same level of education, jazz education, to anywhere. Because no matter where you are, you don't have to be in Tokyo, you don't have to be in Osaka to get the certain level of education. And the price as well. I don't charge that much, traveling costs, because I'm a train geek, so I kind of do the both my habit and my teaching, my job at the same time. So I I visited more than 20 colleges, and I did like 10 performances, so that was really nice for me. So this morning, I would like to mention that today, March 17th, is somebody else, really some famous jazz singer's birthday. Can you guys guess? No, singer. No, male. There you go, Nat King Cole. His 100-year birthday. He was born in 1919. So I'm gonna play some of his music, and I don't think, well, it's always question mark, if I play some too famous or not, but I'm gonna play something I like this morning. The first one I'm gonna play is my favorite tune. He made famous. It's called Too Young. Hope you enjoy.
That is the magic of Yoichi, and it keeps getting better. That was incredible. Thank you, Yoichi. What a blessing. Thank you, thank you. Really beautiful. Beautiful music. Okay, and speaking of the beauty, we are now going to have a wonderful, wonderful talk from a beautiful lady. Her name is Schonda Fields. She is our licensed practitioner, and she is speaking to us this morning about divine guidance is everything. Please help me welcome Schonda.
Am I on? Yeah. You can hear it? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to take a breath. Everyone else, it was challenging getting in this morning. And what's so beautiful about it is that it now is a reminder of my talk, that divine guidance is everything. And so where I want to start is, what is divine guidance? Divine, in the dictionary, is from or God-like. Guidance, directing the motion or position of something. Everything is all things. So we all know in our teaching that we are made in the image and likeness of God. We know this to be our truth. And we get to own this truth. Just as it was said in the treatment, this is who we are. Now, stepping back to what I shared earlier, divine, from God. Guidance, directing the motion of something. That something is us. We are from God being directed. That is the nature of who we are. And then if we remember back to elementary school, divine guidance is everything. The word is a conjunction of the equal sign. Divine guidance equals everything. So when we take a look at ourselves, divine guidance equals everything. We are divine guidance being directed, and we are all things. That is the oneness, that is the essence, that is the allness that we get to know, and I invite you to embody that and breathe that in. Because that is who we are. So, the truth of knowing that we are all things, we get to know that everything and every experience in our life is divine guidance. And that is what I was saying today when I stepped up here. I'm going to take a breath because I had the frustration with the trains. And that was an example of how I went to my human self panicking. And in that moment, I did not have the ability to choose a different emotion. It's my human nature. And that's why I'm saying it's so beautiful how life works. Because here I am coming into church, and this is the experience that I get to have. And divine guidance is saying, this is who you are. What are you choosing in this moment? And what I chose, I'm not honoring my commitment. Oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? All of these conversations. But then when my partner said to me, calm down, get still, and just trust, I was able to get here on time. Now I had to run a couple of blocks, but that's what's so beautiful about this. And that's what I love about our teaching, because we just grow when we grow, and that was just a perfect example for me. So Eric Butterworth states that God is an allness in which you exist as an eachness. or to use the term expression, I am the expression of God. The word express means to stand forth. So I am standing forth not only as me, but I am standing forth as God. That's who we are. And for me, that is very powerful to realize that every step that I take, when I own this, I am standing forth as God, as an expression, as an eachness of God, because I come from God, made in the image of likeness of God. I'm coming from the nothingness into the physical place. I am standing forth in this position. When we take that in, we can see that we are divine guidance at every point in time. Not sometimes, not when I'm feeling good, not when I'm feeling bad, but every point in time. And everything that I am is God, which is everything. This is where we speak about the oneness, and again, as Eric Butterworth shares about the allness. When we own this and we know who we are, we can move through life as pure potentiality. That is who we are. That is us. This is our birthright. There is no separation. We are the healer. We are the expression of the creative practice. We are creation, expression itself each and every day, every step that we take. So now that we know who we are, what's next? First, each of us get to own our divinity. We get to remember what Jesus said in Mark 9:23, all things are possible to them that believe. We get to believe, number two, we get to believe that when he says all things, it means all things. Not some things, but all things. Now, we get to believe this, and we get to understand that it might not happen today, yet we know in our teaching that it will happen. And it might even happen differently and then how we have it pictured. But it will happen. See, our job as we walk this earth as this pure potentiality is not to figure out the how. It's not to be attached to the outcome of how things look. It is just to know and to be in that place of surrender, to know who we are and know that everything in our life is divine guidance because we are divine guidance. That is our truth. The third thing is, and I've mentioned this before in the past, is that we get to connect to our body. And I've said this in the past, that the body is the gift that God has given us to show us where we are moment to moment at each point in time. So example, this morning when my body was getting tight. My body was showing me that you are not connected to the essence of who you are. And from that, from the tightness in my body, I chose. The humanist Schonda chose frustration, fear, anxiety. But my body was saying, it's here. But because I have been conditioned, I have conditioned myself on automatic pilot. When this happens, I didn't take the time to step back and say, wait a minute, Your body's talking to you. Breathe in. That's why I think it's a beautiful gift, and I'm here speaking about this today. So that's, wow. So here's a little story that happened. So I received some fines. And I had to walk into a room of 8 people. Perhaps they were my peers, perhaps they weren't, I don't know. But I had to sit in front of this table, and then I had to explain myself and appeal some fines. Now, what was so powerful about that for me is that I stood in my power, I stood in my confidence, I articulated exactly how I felt and the reason that the appeals should be reduced. I was open to making it win-win. Let's have the fines reduced. So I came out of there and I was like, that was awesome. I won this. This is great. They're going to reduce the fines. Then Friday night, I received an email that said decline, 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 decline. My appeal was declined. And I got really quiet. I didn't want to talk about it with my partner. My first step, I went to blame. And then all of a sudden, I started laughing. Because this entire week, I've been reading Butterworth's book about allness and connecting and understanding our true essence of who we are. And understanding with this talk that everything is spirit. And I literally started laughing. Because that was a divine guidance saying, how did you choose in that moment? Again, I chose blame. But I caught myself, so I got to celebrate that. Because I didn't stay in it that long. And I was like, wow. I really get to choose and celebrate how divine guidance is working in my life and how I'm a part of everything. So I celebrated. I'm writing a check for the fines with joy, knowing that God is my source and the substance of my supply. And then again, I laughed because it was an opportunity for me to use that as an example today. It worked out. And here's what I was saying earlier. It worked out for the highest good of everyone concerned. And I didn't write about this, but this is coming up that I want to share with you. So I was speaking to a practitioner that I had met in Atlanta. And when I told her what happened about the fines, she said, well, this is great. And I said, what do you mean this is great? I was like, yeah, I'm celebrating, I get to talk about it in church. And she's like, but Schonda, here's the deal. She goes, someplace inside of you, there were other actions that you could have taken. For example, I had a different interpretation of the rules. And she said, you could have asked for clarification on those rules, but you didn't. You went ahead and did it your way. And she goes, and what is happening is not the fact that there is punishment. And this is what I thought she connected the dots so well. She said, there is a belief in you that you live your life in such a sense of integrity. That is your belief. So if you don't live your life in the belief of integrity by asking the question, that's what shows up. So in our teaching, it's about belief. So my belief in integrity is saying, well, if you don't live your life by integrity, you will get caught. Well, I got caught. But in my mind, I rationalize, well, I can do it because it doesn't say I can't. And she said, but you could have asked for it. She goes, so that to me was so powerful because it's like, wow, I have this belief, and this is another way of divine guidance, showing me where there were other choices you could have made, but based on that belief, that I believe that you get to live your life in integrity, and it is in my subconscious. It's there. So, like any athlete, we get to practice. We get to practice how we get to win this game we call life. So we get to practice the presence of God that we are. So what is the practicing the presence of God? Eric Butterworth stated that practicing the presence doesn't necessarily mean meditating for long periods of time. And then I want to read this from his book, Practical Metaphysics. A doctor practices medicine. Does that mean he sits lotus-like on a pillow and gets these cosmic revelations before he dispenses his pills to people? It doesn't mean that at all. What it says, he practices medicine. This is not an emotional experience. It's simply telling you how he makes his living. He practices medicine. Practical metaphysics, or the practice of the presence of God, is relating all things to God, to the God process, and identifying a channel for the allness. It's getting ourselves in tune and working out that consciousness. That is practicing the presence. So we get to practice the presence of God. It is to live constantly as if you believe in the allness of God. We're present in its totality at every point. At every point in our lives, we get to be present to the totality of the allness of God, of who we are. That means in every experience of your life. That means before you move into a relationship, you get still and you practice the presence. Before you make a phone call, you get still and you practice the presence. That's the exercise. So we know that we have our treatment work, we have our meditation work, but this is the daily practice. And this is, what is coming to me right now. It's just like what Paul said, you pray without ceasing. This is prayer without ceasing, that everything that you do, you take a step back and you just say, I am the allness of God, and the allness of God is in me. Because you connect to that allness. That's the practice in every aspect that we do. So you practice by also remembering that each and every one of us, we came from the beginning. And that beginning is the allness of God. And when we get centered in knowing, we are the beginning. And when we live our life and we walk that way and we understand that as I'm walking, I am the beginning. I am the foundation. I am the expression of God at this moment and point in time in every individual. There is no blame. When we connect to our body, when we understand who we are, we understand how it works for us. Life becomes this beautiful, magical flow. And that does not mean that things do not take place that you might not like. We're not here, it's not a magic wand. It is an opportunity to stand and know the truth. Because we know that nothing is happening to us, everything is happening for us. We know nothing happens outside of us, everything starts with us. And when something is appearing that is happening outside of you, your body will tell you what's going on. So we connect to it. And then we get to choose. We get to choose the emotion. We get to choose what we're going to feel. We get to choose if I'm sick, how am I going to feel? There might be pain in my body, but I am the allness of God and the Spirit of God is moving through me. So I know that I am healed. I know that I am the allness. I know that everything is working out for my highest good. And here's the thing. It sometimes is tough in this life, this journey. And that is why you have practitioners. That is why you have prayer groups. That is why you come to service. That is why you go to the Wednesday evening class to pick you up. Because life is not about you doing it alone. Life is about you working together in a collectiveness. Because, see, if I would have picked up the phone to the practitioner in Atlanta and say, this is what's going on, I would have never understood that the belief that I have is integrity. So now I get to choose. I get to choose that every step that I take in my life gets to be fully integrity, because either way, God is going to say, you can't live that way, so I got to show you. And then you got to write a check. This is what we get to know. So I invite everyone, as you move through this week, I invite you to do two things. One, look in the mirror and say that I am the allness. I am the allness, and I am the expression of God at this point in time. And then the second thing that I invite you to do as you go through this week, start your day with your prayer, with your meditation. You're going to do your mirror work. And then throughout the day, and you can set an alarm on your phone, just a reminder throughout the day that I am the allness and the expression of God at this point in time. So I will leave you with this. God is, I am, and so it is.
You know, one of the things that I love about Schonda when she speaks, she always shares from her own experience. And that was a wonderful lesson for each and every one of us. And I always say when I gleaned from a lesson, there were two things that I got. And I really love it because it's a different way of looking at divine guidance. You are divine guidance. You are being divinely guided, but you also are divine guidance. And part of that story, what I got from that was, as she said so eloquently, sometimes we don't get the answers that we're looking for. But the answer that we get gives us something else to do. We have to go within. We have to look at something in a different way, perhaps. So that was really an excellent lesson. Thank you very much, Shonda. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to have our offering. So,
Well, not King Cole's selection of news. There's something that probably you guys know. I just muted myself.
incredible. I just want to